The Boo'cast synth of the month is the Arturia MicroFreak. Was it Manet who said, "Il est très difficile de dresser le portrait d'une personne que l'on aime"? No, it was me just then. But yes, I've been putting off this synth of the month for a couple of years. But now, it's time to grasp the nettle and attempt to do this petite merveille justice. Released in 2019, the Arturia MicroFreak was born already stuffed to the gills, TARDIS-like, with digital wonders, and seemed like yet another expression of how innovative and how generous Arturia was. It seemed too good to be true then, and subsequent multiple firmware updates have only evolved this tiny synth so greatly that it's now almost ridiculous just how much this plastic door wedge offers. Small it may be, but it just keeps getting bigger. So before it becomes impossible to describe this ever-expanding might, here is my synth of the month. I hope it does not prove to be un mauvais quart d'heure pour toi. So finally I come to the Arturia MicroFreak. Oh my god, it's tiny and incredible. Okay, as of the latest updates, and Arturia are continually adding updates to this, there are, 500 and something writable presets in here. There are multiple new engines. There's there's so much in this little tiny chip of plastic that I'm a little overwhelmed. I'm certainly not going to cover everything that this little baby can do. I'll do my best. I'll try and cover the most important things that come to me. Ooh. And I have a little bit of reverb on the MicroFreak, just a tiny bit. When there are no effects built into this, I think that counts in its favour, because what's going on here is nothing short of miraculous, really. So for those of you who don't know what this thing is, it's a tiny paraphonic digital synthesizer, but with an analog 12 dB multi-mode filter, a bit like a SEM filter. So we've got low pass, band pass and high pass, and it sounds very nice. I'm going to try it on this. There's the low pass filter. Oh, there's a really nice OLED screen that shows you what's going on. So there's our resonance. So it's a nice filter. Got band pass as well. And high pass. It works really well. It's lovely in conjunction with the digital synth engines. Now, let's find an initialized patch and we'll just start from scratch. Right, there we go. There's an init. Quick tour of the front panel. The first thing you notice, it's not an ordinary keyboard. This is actually a capacitive touch keyboard, and when you play the MicroFreak, you're making contact with the bare circuit board. Which has a very particular quality. It's quite difficult to play if you're used to playing an ordinary keyboard, because you can't normally I have my finger resting on the thing I'm about to play, but you can't do that. It just triggers. So but it's very immediate. You get the sense of like bang. It's like you are sort of making direct electrical contact with this thing. Very pretty as well, isn't it? It sort of reminds me of Moorish architecture or some kind of patterning. It's quite beautiful. I think they did a really good job. When this first came out, we just went, oh my god, we need this thing. Look at it, it's so cute. And the price it was at the time is quite unbelievable, especially okay, look, I'm already getting ahead of myself. So what else? We've got this keyboard. We've also got these little there's a hold function there, arpeggio controls, sequencer controls, spice and dice, which we'll come to later, and a pitch bend ribbon. Up here we have glide on its own. And it's great. It's just there. Very immediate. Dare I? Yes, okay, go on. Then we have the modulation matrix, which it's just great. So we can take modulation sources, which are listed down here: cycling envelope, envelope, LFO, pressure, key, arpeggio.
And we can give it to these 4 destinations here:
pitch, the wave, the timbre, or the cutoff. And then we have 3 assignables, which we can literally, you can just grab anything. So if I press and hold that and then waggle this shape knob here, it's there. If I go along to it and give that to that, so it's cycling envelope is now you can just hear that. I'll just go back in here. So now, very quickly, I've just assigned this knob to this envelope here. If you want to get rid of it, you press and hold it, and it goes, which is nice. So that's the modulation matrix with its little button, which is an endless encoder, which goes around that, but it's a button. Click and press. Then we've got a paraphonic button, which enables you to... So when it's not lit, it's monophonic. When you hit that, you can play up to 4 notes. Now, it's paraphonic in the sense that we've only got 1 filter, but inside the digital oscillator, each of the engines inside, it has 4 copies of itself. So if you make any changes to these sound engines, they sort of work polyphonically. So it's halfway between paraphonic and polyphonic. Also, if you press and hold shift, you get unison. And if we go into utility, we can change the unison spread. So
an appropriate bass line.
if we press this panel button, everything on the panel is it basically puts it into manual mode, and it's not a preset you're listening to anymore. It's everything on the panel is exactly as where it looks like it is. And then we have the save and utility functions, where if you make a sound, you can save it, name it, give it a type. So those ones are bass, but you know these are all basses actually. But you get pads, leads, sound effects, whatever. Anyway, sequences. And utility gives you control over the preset. So if we go into the preset, you press this button. Again, this is a rotor encoder with a button. So click to get in. Voice, modulations, preset volume, scale, sequence ARP, vocoder. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff you can do there. Master volume, and then onto the next line here. So there's the glide knob, which we already saw. These 4 orange buttons here are where we get to mess with our digital oscillators. Some of them have been borrowed from Mutable Instruments, who made all of their code open source, and there are some others from other companies as well. So let's have a look at the engines. Go back to a init patch. The first one is basic waves. And it goes from a square to a saw. And then there's pulse width. And I think that's a sub. So if we, for example, timbre there, that's pulse width. So we want a classic pulse width modulation type sound. Let's take our LFO and attach it to timbre. There we go. Give it an amount. And our LFO's down here. Make it paraphonic. Perhaps that's a little bit too much. No, there you go. Haven't got to the LFO yet, but I'm going to give this... that's attached to the sample and hold to the pulse width modulation. So that's basic waves. I'll just disconnect that. There we go, press and hold, disconnecting that connection. So we move on to the next engine, and the next engine is Superwave. It's a multiple oscillator super saw type thing that starts with the saw.
And the next parameter is detune.
And the final parameter is, that's how much. But we've also, as well as saws, we've got triangle. All on its own, that's already rather lovely, isn't it? Yeah, beautiful already. Let's have a look at the next one. Wavetable. So we have a whole bunch of wavetables here. A wavetable takes a collection of single waveform samples and lines them up one against the other, and the synthesizer scrolls through them, scans through them. So these are the different wavetables, and then we've got, how many? 16 built in. And then we can, let's just bring that. And so instead of waggling that knob, I'm just going to once again attach the LFO to timbre. There we go. So now it's a very interesting stuff here. So let's go to another wavetable. So this is one of the examples where if you set the oscillator to change its wavetable through time, I believe we've got independent envelopes. So if you set it to, can you hear that? That's kind of, obviously it could almost be a filter opening or closing. You set that to be controlled by the envelope. In fact, let's just do that. Let's give that timbre to the envelope. So that works polyphonically now. See if we can find another. That's working polyphonically. Anyway, you get it. So wavetables, let's move on. Harmonics. Again, 3 simple controls of the oscillator. There's a chorus at the end of this one. Quite nice. Coupler strong, so this gives us a modelled acoustic instrument, which is, we start with a bow. It's kind of the exciter, how it excites the coupler strong. And then position. Remember, all of these can be modulated. Let's do that again, and I'll do this. Just a little example of each, I think, is going to be enough from now on, because it is actually rather hard to not get sucked into this synth. So now we've got a virtual analog, which gives us, so it's a 2 oscillator. With a sync. Let's make that monophone. And finally, choice of the wave. Let's see what this filter's like. So I'm going to put the envelope into cutoff. So you see, that's a pretty good. And although it is a 12 dB filter, it still has some resonant scream to it. There we go. Next one is a wave shaper. change the wave, the amount, and asymmetry. Remember, we're just listening to basic oscillators here. We're not really getting into synthesis. I'm just going through the digital oscillators. So the next one is 2-op FM. So turn it down a little bit. Bring the amp mod in again. So we've got ratio and amount. All of these can be modulated. You can imagine what we can do with this. And then we've got feedback amount. See we. Formant. So this is I think it's a sawtooth waveform with a filter with 2 peaks built into it before the analog filter. So it's for making sort of vowel shapes. Next one is chords. And we can change our type of chord. Give us a major 7th. The timbre knob gives you inversions. Yeah, of course, I mean, it seems to be the timbre knob is the one I most want to modulate. So let's do that. Modulate with LFO. Very nice. Chords, speech, which is a bit sort of silly. So we've got some words. Whoops. So we got a bunch of words in here which we can't change them. There's a bank of words. Useful. This modal one gives you inharmonic, like striking a piece of metal or a piece of wood. And that works independently of the envelope. It's like it's got its own envelope. Blue vowels and golden sounds, anyone? Next we have noise. Now this is one of the updates brought this oscillator. It's great for making hi-hat sounds, I guess. We'll change the noise type. Yeah. And then next comes, I think it was the last but one updates. We've got some oscillators from Noise Engineering. We've got the bass, the saw X, and the harm. Bass is like this. Saturate, fold, and noise. Next one is saw. It's got a sync. Sounds like stink anyway. Timbre, and again noise. Adds real instability to this little synth. Beautiful. Harm. Again, has its own particular flavour. Rectify. Noise again. Moving on as quickly as we can. Wave user. We can now add our own wavetables to this thing. So you can make your own wavetables. It's a little bit involved. I haven't done it myself. You get into the Arturia software and then you can put your own wavetables in here. It does have some in here. here we go. Samples. You can play samples in this thing now. And okay, it's a limited number of samples inside it, and you have to use the software to put them in. You can't actually sample with the MicroFreak yet. I mean, literally, the updates just seem to keep coming, and it's a little bit like, I mean, you can see how small this thing is. It's like we've got some French engineers walking around inside and going, "Hey guys, I found another room in here." And it's like they keep finding more space inside the MicroFreak, and suddenly it's like, wow, it can sample now. It's got samples now, so you can hear that's a piano. Adjust the start point, the length, and again, there's a loop going on there. So samples and grains. Granular engine in here. Okay. Cloud grains. Yeah, this is even more granular, broken up stuff. 3 controls. Start point. Start at the beginning. Density. I'll turn that right down. We should be able to hear what's going on. So yeah, it's looping that little part. Chaos is randomizing it a little bit. Density is increasing the number of grains, I guess. Great. Hit grains. Yeah, it's a sort of super fast looping thing going on here. It's using the same sample because I haven't put a different one in. There's a vocoder. You plug a microphone jack into the headphone jack. Unfortunately, I'm using the headphone jack right now. You can use it as a vocoder, and yeah, that's it. Is that enough? I mean, come on. Look. What the hell? There's so much in here. Anyway, let's go back to something simple. Basic waves. So there we go. The orange knobs are your friend. The filter I've already seen. We've got low pass, band pass, high pass. It's 12 dB per octave. It's analog, so we've got all this digital loveliness going into some genuine analog loveliness. And it does scream. We've got a cycling envelope. Now the cycling envelope runs in several ways, so we can work it as a simple envelope. Again, it's rise, fall and hold, and an amount knob, which is really useful. So I'll just attach the cycling envelope to something. Let's attach it to cutoff. I'll bring it up. So I'll bring the amount up. Again, although it's digital, and although we've got this modulation matrix here, there is so much immediate control, like this thing. So we've got a rise. Of course, I'm using this one for the amp, so that's fall. And sustain. Exactly like the second envelope, fall is, if you think of it as decay, it's also release. You can even see on the little drawing we've got here, so as I bring up the decay time, the release time increases too. If I hold shift, we can change the shape of these. I'll just make that longer so you can see. You can go from logarithmic to exponential. Logarithmic, exponential. So that gives you the slightly more plucky sort of plucked sounds. The cycling envelope, we can also run it and it loops. Great thing is we can modulate it, but we can also modulate it with this keyboard. Because it's covered in tiny little metal touch plates, we can apply pressure control from the touch plates to anything we like. So I'm going to assign this to the rise time of the cycling envelope. Bring it up. So as I apply pressure, it increases the rise time of this. We've got our ordinary envelope, which can go to amp mod if you want, or you can take it off. And it's got built-in filter mount, which is great. It's just right there. I know earlier I actually went through the mod matrix to connect the envelope to the filter, but I didn't have to do that. You can do it automatically like this. Anyway, it's incredible, isn't it? As I predicted, I have been a little bit overwhelmed by this synth. There is so much going on here. I'm going to look at some presets. I'll go into one I made here. So what type of... So this is using the waves. On the bottom, I'll just press hold. So we've got a little sequence here. Actually, it's an arpeggio. So when we've got an arpeggio going, we've got all these other things here. So we can run it in order. Which will play it in order. We can play it back in random. And then there's pattern, which gives you... Every time you touch the keys, it produces a different random pattern and then sticks with it, which is lovely. And on top of that, we've got these two buttons, spice and dice. So spice, we can add a little bit of spice to it. Adds a little bit of random changes. Let's try that. Bit more spice there. So it takes the notes you've put in and it sort of adds to them or takes away and slightly generates its own pattern, but informed by the notes you've put in, which is quite lovely for coming up with little ideas. Furthermore, we've got dice. We roll the dice. It's changing that pattern is repeating. That's just an arpeggio, but we're doing some mangling to it. And we've got octaves we can add. Let's go up to 2, 3, and 4. So there we go. We've also got, let's just stop that. We can make a sequence as well. So the way we do that, so an arpeggio, you just press harp and then you get an arpeggio. But to get a sequence, we press and hold shift and press sequence, and then we can hit record. Now in the utilities, we can tell it how long our sequence is going to be, and this one is going to be 64 steps, and that's the maximum number we can have. So we can go. So there's one little bit, and we can also do it polyphonically. And we can add rests. I should have made that shorter, but there we go. Now we've got our sequence. If I hit play, it plays. I can also play it by hitting a key on the keyboard. So and I can transpose it up and down. Which is really useful, so I'm going to use this a lot live. We've got little sequenced parts and I want to just hit it. There it is, and it works. Again, we can spice and dice it. Go back to the bend. Furthermore, in the sequencer, we've got 4 lanes of automation we can have, and I'm going to find a sequence here. Mad drums. So you see, in the sequence, these 4 lights light up when we've got automation. So I'll just... So here, we've got the automation literally giving us a kick, a sort of hat, and a bass line, and we can transpose it as well. Pretty cool. So in the latest update, they gave us all these new samples and wavetables and things. So cutoff is attached to pressure here. So this has got to be the sample engine. Change it to the grains engine. This is a great thing. Once you've got a sound up, you can actually change the engine and transfer the preset into another engine and start messing with it there. It's a little bit like flipping the algorithm on a DX7, sort of seeing what the presets are doing to a different algorithm, except it's a lot more... You get a lot more change. Love it. Got some Dyson. So yeah, dice very much messes with the gate time of sequences as well. So if we disconnect the amp from the second envelope, you can get some choppy little things happening. Slow it down. And the LFO can be synced to the sequencer. Yeah. And it has this curious sort of... It's digital, but it's got a curiously sort of warm, analogy, sort of floaty quality when it wants to. That's an excellent demonstration of the polyphonic aftertouch which it has. Some, it's either wavetable or it's a sample. Very nice. Anyway, as you see, I mean, I could get carried away forever on this. It's just got so much flexibility. It's ridiculous. And let's see what we've got here. this sample here, which I called Orchestra, is using I believe a wavetable. We use this all the time, just for little bits of rhythmic stuff and whatever, and like, you know, you can always, if you don't like what it's doing, you can give it a little nudge. And you can just end up with something, you know, brilliant. I'm not saying this is brilliant, but you get the picture. Anyway, so I think I have to stop because I am about to go completely mad. My advice to anyone who says, "Oh, I've never had a synth before. Can you recommend one?" Get one of these. It's just got so much joy inside it, and it's literally, I mean, it's top quality, and it's got, you know, there's some real digital heritage in here. There's some modular heritage in here with all those oscillators provided by very well-respected modular designers. There's some analog heritage in here. We've got this 12 dB filter, which is a nod in the direction of the Oberheim SEMs, and there's cycling envelopes, and there's so much, and the whole thing is programmable, and every single preset gets not just one, but 2 sequences. So I mean, that is so generous. And Arturia keeps seeming to find more and more space inside this thing. So I mean, you'd be silly not to. And indeed, as I said before, this thing is the price of 10 of these will get you the Polybrute. And I never answered the question I set myself in the Polybrute review, which was, is the Polybrute worth 10 of these? And, you know, I'm not sure it is. Imagine if you had 10 of these. Oh yeah, it's got CV outs and it's got MIDI in and out at the back and, yeah, all that stuff, whatever. This is a beautiful synth. Yeah. Thanks for watching.